Not quite. Hey, robot makers, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day so far. So, do you want to meet other robot makers like yourself who make amazing robots? So my name is Kevin. I'm making a mess of this already. My name is Kevin. Come with me as we build robots, bring them to life with code, and have a whole load of fun along the way. So today we're going to meet Alex Glow, who's a prolific maker, tutorial writer, YouTuber, musician, lead nerd at Hackster.io. So let's get over to meet Alex. Hey Alex, how you doing?
Hey, what's up?
What's up?
Maybe on a little bit of a lag, but I'm really excited to be here. I
Awesome.
love talking about robots. I love talking about my
Robots.
projects, and I do a lot of interviewing other people, but it's kind of more rare than I'm on this side of the mic, so
Yeah.
it's very exciting.
Awesome. Good. So, first question then. When did you get into robotics?
So, I think the first time that I started playing with actual robots was in FIRST, so for inspiration and recognition of science and technology, I believe is what it stands for. FIRST Robotics is a competition for high school students. At least back in the day, it may have changed, but it was for high school students teamed with mentors, and every year there would be a challenge that you'd have to solve with a specified kit of parts, and then you could add, I think you had a certain budget you couldn't go over to add more parts, and then we were paired, in my case, with students from the Ohio State University, and we were building this robot. We built 4 of them over the years. I got to drive them around. It was amazing. I was working on programming them in PBasic.
Oh, wow.
And just the design aspect was amazing. I loved learning to code. I loved learning how to solder. I already kind of knew how to solder from when I was a kid, but I had to sort of relearn because my dad showed us how to do that when we were very small. But yeah, let's see. So there are just a bunch of really cool robots in that, and I love that they foster the spirit of collaboration as well as competition. Super cool.
And that's what I love about robotics. It's kind of the intersection of like mechanical design and the engineering side, the electronic side, and then the programming side. I just love that it's
And
all
the
those
part where you
different
get
things.
to play with it.
Oh, the best bit. Awesome. So tell me, what was your first robot? Oh, wow.
My first robot, well, I'm kind of actually betraying that right now by putting Fenrir on, but Archimedes, this owl, was my first robot that I
Wow.
fully built by myself. Ah! Okay. So
Wow.
he's this owl, and he would sit on my right shoulder, and I built this in 2018 for the Maker Faire, as you can see by the bandana on here.
Wow.
This is actually version 2, but he's got the same basic 3D printed shape, and he's built around a Google AIY vision kit, which basically enables him to read emotions, supposedly, and respond to those. He can tell if you're like smiling or making a really angry face and stuff like that, and he would do little put-a-boop or put-a-boop noises and have little color responses as well.
Wow.
And I iterated on this guy a little bit, but yeah, that was the sort of basic core of Archimedes.
Yeah, no, the thing that you've done with that I've not seen anyone else do is that you wear it. You wear it on your shoulder. I've not seen anyone else wear a robot before.
Oh, well, I sort of, Archimedes was kind of the kickstart of a wave of these things, so now there's actually a pretty strong and thriving companion bot community. There's some of us who meet every couple of weeks. My friend Odd J, I met through this. Basically, he
Wow.
saw Archimedes and decided to get into building a spider robot called Aussie, and he's now done way more robots than I have. Really creative person, and we met through companion bots. So he and other people have been designing and creating their own. Steph Piper has created some templates, 3D printable templates that you can use to make your own companion bots. It's really exciting.
Wow. And is it difficult to make it stay put? I would imagine that would take a bit of engineering in itself.
That's definitely one of the main challenges, and I'm hoping to share more information with people about my own methods.
Yeah.
So this one is an athletic brace, which is the second form of Archimedes harness. The first one was extremely, like you say, kind of uncomfortable and difficult to put on and stuff. He had this armature wire that's used for sculpting inside of recycled bicycle inner tubes that I just had laying around, and I put it inside of that to make it look cooler and more comfortable, and it would sort of like wrap around in my entire torso and had this like heavy metal bracket that it was attached to. But now I have designed my own sort of
Oh wow.
GoPro-based 3D printed brackets, so it's more modular. You can kind of see in there, this is a GoPro
Yeah.
modified base that I modified in Tinkercad, so now I can make my own little custom attachments and stuff. And he's actually really comfortable. So
Hmm.
now I can, previously I would get done with a long day at Maker Faire or something, and I'd just be dog tired because I'd have to keep perfect posture all day so he wouldn't
Yeah.
fall over and stuff. But with this, he's a lot more comfortable. Fenn's is still a work in progress, definitely, but it is really easy to put on. It's just
Yeah.
like this headband sort of velcroed onto the bottom here.
So what
But
kind of
it's,
power have they
it
got?
works.
What are they
What
powered
kind of
by?
power? They both run off of, and I'll probably continue using this power system, rechargeable USB power banks. So these are
Ah,
5 volts
okay.
each. They have little USB, uh, you know, jacks.
Yep.
And I just attach sacrificial USB cables to everything. So this guy has 3. There's one for the teensy that drives his motors. There's one for the servos so that they have independent power from the controller. And then there's one from the Raspberry Pi, which is what enables him to talk. And I'm going to plug in the motors right now because that's fun. But in order to make him talk, I still have that all going through a Raspberry Pi, which I have to SSH into from my computer. And eventually I'll make it just so that he like says something, some things on his own.
Love that.
But for now, he's got to be like SSH'd into, and yeah. But
And is
he'll
that a
still
Raspberry Pi
do some
camera
cute.
right in the middle of the head?
It is. So I originally designed Fenrir around this platform called OpenVino, which runs on a Raspberry Pi and an Intel Neural Compute Stick 2. um, and it's for AI. They can do face detection and stuff. But I think that so part of my goal with this stuff is to help people understand when and where to use AI. So I think that facial recognition and facial detection technologies have a long way to go in terms of both how they're ethically deployed and how they work. So, even now, there's systems that will not categorize people of color as human, which is obviously a huge problem. And I don't think that we should be deploying anything to the public sphere that
Yeah.
has that problem. Plus, they tend to be trained on largely white and male faces, so they largely are not as good with
Yeah.
other people. And so part of the goal with these is to help start those conversations around like, AI is cool, but when do we use it? And so he doesn't have a currently running model on him. Um, but it has the room for it eventually. You can see the little cable under his
Yeah. Yeah.
face there. This felt material is great for that springiness. And Archimedes also, I used him to give a series of talks at hackathons in China that we ran about sort of using AI gracefully.
It reminds me of the one of the projects I'm working on at the moment is a Twitcher Pi. So this little guy here, that's just
Ooh.
actually a 3D printed. It's like a pair of binoculars. The idea is it's like somebody holding that, and that's going to be just pointing outside my window there, and there'll be a bird table, and I'll be able to detect birds on the bird table and classify what type they are.
I
So
love that.
doing a video series about how to build up all the different steps of that. So I think
Cool.
the last video we did was how to build all the back-end database stuff in MongoDB, and then the next one's going to be about how to do all the image tagging and labeling stuff in JavaScript. So,
Cool.
and then we export all that into like a Pascal VOC model, and then run it through TensorFlow, and then hey presto, we have a nice model. Cool.
I love that.
I've done one before on OpenCV and face detection, and that's pretty straightforward to get going. Cool. So tell me about Archimedes then. What inspired you to create that?
Yeah, like I said, he's based around a Google AIY Vision Kit, and that's partly why I built him, is because Google sent us these 2 kits, and I picked this one because it'll run offline, and part of the idea is that, I don't like the idea of anyone sending up my image or my video to a cloud service to be
Yeah.
analyzed, and so the fact that that could run offline completely on the device, and that you'd have to like actually physically connect up
Yeah.
the robot to your computer in order to pull the images or video off, I really loved. So originally I was just going to build a little robot to give out stickers, or
Yeah.
maybe a smart box that would like open up and give you stickers when you smile or frown or whatever. And then, just through iteration, it started turning more and more into an owl. And then eventually, the night before Maker Faire, I was trying to finish it up. And my friend Mojit was there, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna put that on your shoulder, right?" And I was like, like, of course.
Genius.
And the funny thing is that I had already been wanting to build a companion bot for years, and it just happened by accident. And I have this nickname, Merlin, from the hackerspace I helped found in Ann Arbor, which is aka All Hands Active. Love you guys. And so I had this nickname, Merlin, and the original wizard Merlin had a familiar, a bird called Archimedes, and so it was like this perfect confluence. I had to call him Archimedes.
Love that. We have a connection with Archimedes as well, don't we? So we were thinking of a name for our first dog, a little Chihuahua, and we were thinking like famous mathematicians or scientists. So we came up with Archimedes. So he's that's our dog's name as well.
Yeah, it is great. It is perfect, right? It's like a perfect name for a techie critter as well.
Yeah, I get
In
vibes.
the book, Archimedes the owl hates being called Archie, and so I feel a little bit bad every time I call him that, but it's such a cute name.
It is, isn't it? It reminds me of that, is it Return to Oz? They had quite a few robot things in that, didn't they? They had like TikTok, the little walking thing.
I've never actually seen that.
It's got
I
kind of,
probably should. I hear
yeah, it's got
I hear
steampunk
a
kind
lot
of vibes about it as well.
Ooh, I should watch that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I hear a lot of references to is Clash of the Titans. There's a robotic owl called Bubo, and which I think is just the Latin word for owl, and but he's a totally different color.
Awesome. So tell me, are you working on any more robots at the moment then? What projects are you working on? Doesn't have to be
Yes!
robotic if you got some other stuff as well.
So many things. But first question, robots. Yes, Roko doesn't look very exciting right now, because I'm still like doing various things. But this is gonna be my like lap robot, kind of a blob. My first exploration into fur, but she's gonna have little grabby paws. I've been I'll show you some of the things I've been prototyping. So Roko is just like a little blob lap robot made of rabbit skin that's really soft. And originally she was going to be a cat, and so I built this purr module, which is a flexible PCB that will hold 4 motors, vibration motors. And if I plug that in, we're going to have a fun time. Oh! Yeah, it just, it goes. But in the future, it's going to be transistor controlled, and I'll be able to like PWM it on and off and like make little sort of patterns that will like denote different things. And I've also been designing this companion core, which is going to control both the purr module and other robotic parts. Right now, it's hooked up to an early prototype of Roko's head. I decided eventually that she's not going to have one because I think it's cuter that way. She's got this like one Cyclops eye, but previously there was this head, and you can see how the servos are hooked up to this companion core board. And one thing that I've gotten really into in the last year or so is making, I'll show you a better view of that, it's making PCBs, so printed circuit boards. And this is what that companion core looks like without all the stuff on it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So what do you use for that?
Heart in there, if you can see.
Oh wow, yeah. So you use KiCad for that, or Eagle, or?
I do. I've been told that it's KiCad because the people who make it are French.
Yep.
But I always said KiCad. I kind of like how it sounds. But yeah, I use KiCad, open source for the win. Yes. And I've also built this Ouija planchette-based ESP8266 programmer.
You had those earrings as well, I remember. I saw a picture
It is
of
an
that.
earring, yeah.
Sweet.
But you can use it to program ESP8266 modules, and so I thought the ESP connection was good there.
Because some small modules are a pain, aren't they? They're not breadboard friendly. I've got a few of them.
They're not really, and making a programmer from scratch is a huge pain because there's 2 buttons on here when it's assembled. You've got a programming pin and a reset pin. The programmer pin you use to just put it in programming mode, and this one will just like sit flat on a desk, and you sort of press down on both buttons, and then you release the reset button, and then you release the program one, and then you're in programming mode. It's very easy.
Sweet.
So
you mentioned
the design on there is nasturtiums.
Yeah, you mentioned about the was it FreeCAD you use? What do you use for doing your computer-aided design?
KiCad.
And Tinkercad, was it?
Oh, Tinkercad. Well, so I use Tinkercad specifically for mashing up different models. If I want to take an existing model off of, say, Thingiverse, which is a wonderful repository of, accessible, you can just download other people's 3D models, then you can use Tinkercad to sort of mash them together, and it works really well for that. But what I usually use for design from scratch is Onshape, which is a browser-based 3D model CAD modeling tool. It's really great for parametric modeling. Tinkercad is great, but it doesn't allow you as much power when it comes to precision and numerical values, which are really important to me when I'm, designing stuff that's supposed to fit together. In fact, I even use Onshape for designing the outlines of PCBs sometimes. So like this one, which is my new Hackster 2022 PCB, I designed the whole outline for this in Onshape and then just exported it as a DXF and then converted that to SVG for this because it's easier than trying to model this shape in other platforms for me. It's just got such tight control options and you can have these sort of aspects where it's a construction line or a construction circle which isn't part of the final design but helps you create the image that you want. It's so good. And you can put little radiuses in there. You can make curves and what am I looking for?
Like tangents and things?
I know no, we're fillets.
Oh yes.
Fillets and bevels. Which make things smoother and prettier.
Yes, I use Fusion 360. I started out with the
Solid.
hobbyist education version of that, and then I went for the full-blown version. My generous viewers enable me to afford to buy the license for that because that's not cheap. I don't use.
That's probably why I like Onshape is because like all my stuff is open. So all your on the free level of Onshape, all your designs are open. And that's fine for me.
The thing I always get wrong, and I have to print out thousands of copies of, is the tolerances. I always get that wrong, and it's probably to do with the mixture of 3D printing and just natural tolerances of things. So I always forget to do that, and then things never fit together properly.
Oh no! My usual go-to reference for how to make things so that they don't, so that they just have just enough space to fit together is like 0.5 millimeter. But I know that. With different materials, it's going to be different in real life, and you can go from there. But for me, like my sort of default is 0.5 millimeter on each side.
Do you print mostly in PLA, or do you mix it up?
I do a lot of PLA because it's compostable, and the thing there is that the caveat is that you can't compost it yourself. You have to. It's compostable in an industrial situation where they have high enough temperature and pressure to actually biodegrade it. So there's other stuff that I'm looking into. There is recycled PLA. I've looked into recycling PLA myself by melting it down and pushing it into these molds that I've made. I made molds out of high temperature epoxy that you mold around your stuff. It's really easy. Then you just like let it sit. It's like you mash it together, these two parts, and then you make your mold shape. You let it cure, and then eventually you're able to just melt PLA on like a hot plate or something and then mash it into those molds and create stuff. It's not a perfected process yet. I think that actually a cool thing to do would be able to extrude it into glue stick type shapes if you had a high temperature hot melt gun and like extrude it that way. But there are people who recycle. There's the Precious Plastic Project, which are amazing people who are doing stuff around recycling that.
Yeah, but is it fructose-based PLA or some PLA? Not sure.
It's polylactic acid, so I think it's something from milk.
Milk.
Yeah, it's like a protein. I could be wrong, but it's like a polymer made from that.
So tell me, what are your greatest challenges then? Yeah, so we've got a bit of a second delay there, so I'm not purposely speaking over you there.
That's cool, I get it.
Yeah. So tell me about your greatest challenges, and I'll give you an idea myself. So for me, it is the mechanical engineering side of it. So whenever I'm putting something together, that's my weak area, and I am learning more about the electronic stuff. So I've been watching quite a few of your videos, like putting together the solar synth thing and all the soldering. I've got a proper soldering iron now, so I can do it properly. So yes, how about yourself?
So it's interesting because at Hackster, a lot of our audience is, in case you didn't know, I work at hackster.io. I make videos about building hardware and stuff, and we're in a huge community of online community of hardware developers, so people sharing open source tutorials. Um, So a lot of our audience are people who are coming from a software background and want to get into hardware, and I understand why, because hardware is awesome. But I actually don't have that software background that a lot of those people do, and so my weak point often is like I can build this whole robot, but then, A, I get distracted and like I want to build another thing, but also B, just getting the I have a few sort of basic movement sketches and stuff. Um, but going beyond that is always such a pain for me that I move on to something else
Yeah.
before I really have time to invest deeply into building something that's really interesting. And so, actually, there's a lot of interesting stuff now that helps you with that. So, Edge Impulse is one that's really great for building your own artificial intelligence projects.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to incorporating more of that into my robots. Yes. Um, but that is my greatest challenge, and that's the place where I'm most looking for tools to help me overcome those challenges.
Yeah. And that's a question to our live audience at the moment as well. What are your greatest challenges? I'm just interested in a bit of a quick poll of people watching. And so for myself, I'm not a professional developer or anything like that, but I've always had a hand somewhere in programming. So I've learned various different languages like Pascal and C. I remember reading
Wow.
once that somebody said, if you want to make really great software, make your own hardware. And I was like, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. But I've got a computer
I
science
can't say it's
degree.
necessarily helped me that much yet. Maybe it's once you get beyond the simple stuff, if you want to get really deep, because that kind of makes sense. In order to program really deeply and effectively on a computer, you want to know how that computer works from the bottom up, right? There's an amazing interview. I've been digging into some of the interviews I've been doing with people for the last year at Hackster.
Yeah.
We have this weekly segment, Hackster Cafe,
Yeah.
and one of the top 10 ones from last year was Kwabena Ajiman, who is the creator of OpenMV, the sort of AI augmented camera. And he has this amazing riff that he goes on for like 10 or 15 minutes, telling us in detail how he takes the same camera module and he got like 25x performance out of it or something. He got at least 5 times, and it was like having a whole extra camera module. Like there's all these things that he was able to tweak at the programming level based on how that thing and the firmware level based on how it's constructed, that he was able to squeeze out like 5 times as much performance and get it 5 times faster without ever changing the hardware. That, I think, is just wizardry. It's magic.
So the guy who invented MicroPython, he did a video on how to make something run, I think it's a ridiculous number, like 15,000 times faster. And because he's written MicroPython himself, he knows how to optimize it to do that. And it's quite ridiculous, but he starts looking at like, don't use global variables, use local variables, because global variables has to go through the dictionary and it takes ages to do that, so don't use them, and keep really short names because then it takes less memory and takes less time to copy it, and there's so many different like optimizations he went through. And it's really, you start thinking, right, I didn't realize you could get this much power out of a little chip. And most people are, if they're kicking around one of these what they called Raspberry Pi Picos or an ESP32, they're dual core. You've got an entire core there sat doing nothing most of the time. So how can you use that? So I did a video not too long ago about how to use threads. The ESP32 is an amazing chip. There's so much power in there. I think you can run 17 threads in Python, in MicroPython. So that's a really cool thing to be looking at. Cool. So let's have a look what else we've got question-wise for you here. So one of the questions we have, so I interviewed Liz from Blitz City DIY, I think you might know her, and she was saying about if you had unlimited resources, unlimited time, what would you do?
The Blue Sky Project.
Yeah.
So, okay. I haven't thought about this in a long time. My previous answer, from when I used to think about this a lot, was a public glider infrastructure. So instead of us all having our well, I mean, trains are amazing, but also like to have like a daily thrill to turn the commute into something that's
Wow.
wonderful. So you know what? With roller coasters at the start, they sort of tow you up this ramp, and then they chuck you off the end. Imagine if we had that, like bus stations, but it was
Wow.
like that, and it was for gliders, and you'd have your own glider, and it would maybe be collapsible, and you'd just like get chucked off the end of this thing. And we have the technology now where we could like live map thermals and things, and you could see where to go to sort of like ride the thermals up and stuff, and you'd have like a landing pad on the roof of your work. And maybe they'd have a garden up there too or something. It's a very solar punk idea, but basically all you'd need in terms of fuel and energy input is that initial tow up the ramp to get you above, ground level,
Yeah.
and then you'd be able to, because cities put off so much heat. Surely there's areas of concentration where we could actually use that to good use to cut down on our car emissions. Anyway, I still love that idea. If I had all the money and power in the world, I'd totally do that.
That is blue
Now,
sky thinking.
yeah, I don't
I
know,
like
probably
that.
still something.
Yeah. I like that. I like the idea of, I was thinking about how could you make things better? And I was thinking, imagine where everything is like solar powered, or it just passively collects energy from maybe motion or something. So hardly anything needs a battery. Like, why does an Apple Watch need a battery? Well, maybe it has a battery, but why not make it kinetic so it's constantly charging itself so you don't need to plug it in? We've got all this energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And things like,
If you're interested in this stuff, people who are into this should totally check out solar punk.
Solar
I think
punk.
that this future is solar punk.
Making so many notes today.
Let me know if my mic is rubbing on these headphones. I wasn't able to get the
No, it's fine.
computer audio out through those, which is
Yeah.
why I'm wearing them instead.
Do you know any injuries from Fennec there, just whacking you in the head?
No, well, that's why Fenrir is made out of felt.
Ah.
This is 3mm soft felt. And that's one reason why. Because Archimedes has these huge eyebrows that were very pointy at the start. These ones I've trimmed down, but he absolutely would stab me in the face with regularity.
Sort of like
but
this
Fen-
after an event.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but Fenn's all soft and it's kind of cute. One other thing about him being made out of felt is that he only takes, it takes about 2.5 minutes to laser cut all the parts
Oh, wow.
for him.
Yeah.
Whereas Archimedes takes hours and 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 hours of 3D print. And if anything goes wrong while you're not babysitting it, then,
Yeah.
and actually the first time I printed him, the spool holder on our 3D printer was out and I didn't have a replacement, and it was the night before Maker Faire. No, the night before something else. And so I had to babysit it until 5 a.m. Just like inching the filament roll forward myself so that it wouldn't run out of filament. So this is much nicer.
Yeah, it's so true about the
Roka's parts
3D
are
printing. I'm trying to design things that require less printing now. Because it just takes so long. I've got 2 printers, but even then it still takes quite a lot of time to print. So I'm just going to have a quick look through some of the questions that the audience have been asking.
In the meantime, I'll show you.
yeah.
Roko's parts are 3D printed right now, but they could be laser cut. They're all flat. It's just because I have a 3D printer at home. The skeleton.
So Dan Makes Things is saying he can't believe that Archimedes is 4 years old already.
I know, right?
Wow.
And I've met so many people in that time. Like, I met Odd J at Maker Faire that year. No. He published his Aussie robot later that year in like October or November. And we started talking then, and now we're like great friends. It's awesome.
So Dale is impressed with the state of wearable electronics, a robot on your shoulder.
Yeah.
So you need a robot on both shoulders. You can do that now, of course.
You can do that. I do have a robot for each shoulder, but it gets a little bit crowded.
Awesome. Well, let's see if I can find a decent question. I've asked people to put a Q in front of their question.
Roko's a lap robot. I could actually have all 3 of them on at once. Roko's going to have heating, so she'll be nice and cozy for the winter.
Cool. Let's see if there's anything else. So, yes, we've got Liz on, actually. She says that PCB is absolutely gorgeous. It is, isn't it? I saw that and I was like, wow, is that a rib cage? That's awesome.
Yes. I built that one around Halloween.
Oh, wow.
It's a very good Osh Park's After Dark colorway. with this like gold and copper and white and black. It's just gorgeous.
I love the handwritten font on the command cue core as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
That's nice.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna be publishing a tutorial soon about
Sweet.
how I draw things in Procreate and turn them into PCBs. So this ribcage was drawn in Procreate. They're actually functional traces on there. Like there's a reason for that to be there. They're connecting pins across the board.
Yeah.
Similarly, I drew this these nasturtiums in Procreate and did the hand lettering and stuff. All kinds of stuff. This also, actually, this Avnet 100 years Centennial guitar pick PCB, also drawn in Procreate. That just does like a little, a little light thing.
And I'll just show you as well, if I can pick the right camera. So this is my little collection of robots here.
I love that little ghost one.
Yes, that's what I was going to show you. So this is actually a line-following robot. So underneath, if I just, oops, I just come to the main screen there.
Shout
So
out
there's
to
a little,
Otto as well.
yeah, a little, yes, I've got an Otto as well. We've had Camilla on the show, actually. He's been a guest. And this is a little ghost I designed on my 3D printer. So yeah, so it's got a little line following module. It is so cute. It works as well. We did that on our show. And I've also got the Pac-Man. I think just see him there. Trying to do this.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
Get back to front, please. Yes. Cool. So let's see if there's any other questions. So Dan says, having a 3D pen is good to make up the odd bits of filament. I believe quite a few people use 3D printed pens to do welding, like soldering, but with 3D prints.
Yeah. That's a great point. What have I used that for before? Oh, there's a really cool thing that you can do with PLA, with a 3D printing pen.
Yeah.
You can make DIY jewelry. So you draw it on a flat piece of paper, then you like doodle over it with the 3D printing pen, and then you just dip it. You pop it off the paper once it's cool, and you dip it into hot water, and then you can wrap it around your finger or your wrist or whatever, and it forms to yourself because it's thermoformed plastic. I do recommend using a different form than your skin because it's still very hot, but it's really cool. You can just like draw something jewelry and then wear it like 10 minutes later.
You just have to embrace the organic nature of that. So if it looks a little bit off, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Adam there is saying about his greatest issue is he doesn't understand the maths of kinematics. So we did a video on that, Adam, a while back. I can't remember the title of it, but it was probably about kinematics, inverse kinematics, I think it was.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I totally lied when you asked me what my first robot was. When I was at Sauce Labs, I designed these two Delta bots. Speaking of kinematics, Delta robots run on inverse kinematics, I think.
Yeah.
And they have these 3 arms that you have to calculate where something is in. Okay, they have 3 arms that connect at a platform that you can move around in 3D space, but the computations are pretty challenging because you've got 3 arms, so it's not just like an XY Cartesian kind of thing. And so I built these 2 robots that would each hold a stylus for a stylophone keyboard, and together they would play this song from Portal, which is like the turret's opera or something, on these little stylophones. And I totally forgot that I built that first. Yeah, that was in like 2013 or something. My gosh,
that's a pretty challenging first build as well. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of what I was doing was not actually doing inverse kinematics. Instead, I was just sort of like doing guess and check, like brute forcing the positioning. But now that you mention that, yes, absolutely, that kind of robot math is very difficult. And there are tools to help you with that as well. Of course, as time has gone on, people have designed libraries for this kind of thing. Plus, there's other things where you can record into a servo position and then sort of play it back, which is a great boon for people who are finding it hard to do that kind of math. But yeah.
A guess and check. That's a very valid way of developing things. I think that's supposed to be my programming technique is mostly guess and check. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're doing something very specific, like trying to put a stylus on a keyboard, then it's not the most inefficient way. Although eventually you build up a library of like, okay, this note is this position, that note is that position, and then you can just like use that to construct tunes and stuff.
And you get more of an intuitive understanding of how the thing works then, I think, rather than just is a library that somebody's written and it just happens to work and you've no idea why.
Yeah, and they're both good, you know, they're different types of knowledge.
So yeah, I would definitely recommend as well for starters the Otto DIY. I love these little robots. I've got 3 of them.
Love it.
So Camilla sent me the one with the eyes as well. It's just a little yellow one at the back there. And I'm a
Ooh.
massive fan of the Smars robot, so I have loads and loads and loads of
Oh,
these.
very cute.
Um,
There's a lot of open source things to help you control commercial robots as well, like the Anki and Vector that got discontinued.
Yeah.
But building your own is absolutely. There's also the Petoy Biddle and
Yes.
Nibble, which are from oh my gosh, what's his name?
Yep, Pet.io.
Forgetting.
Is that the name of
Sorry?
it? Pet.io. It's the same guy who did the Open Cat, so I have one of those.
Pet.oi.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's the
Petoy.
one.
Or something like that.
Yep.
Rongjong Lee
Yes.
created these, and they're just amazing. He has this wonderful tutorial on Hackster where he talks about how those are put together with these techniques taken from Chinese architecture. And also he wrote like a traditional Chinese quatrain poem when he first blinked an LED to sort of celebrate it, which I think just anything that melds, this idea of STEAM, right? Of like science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics is just like sparkly eyes.
Yes. I have invited him onto the show, but I think the time zone is too great because he's based in Beijing, I think.
Yeah.
So I have invited
Yeah.
him, and he was very interested, but I don't think we could quite make that work. I'll just have to stay up and record it in the middle of the night. So-
Yeah, you'll meet in person.
So I made a tiny version. So that's the Smars. This is the Smars Mini, and it's absolutely
Oh my
tiny.
gosh.
What's really cool about this, I'll just go full screen a second. So this little robot, it has a laser rangefinder there. You can just about see it. And it has the it's RP 2040 Tiny. It's the one by Pi Moroni. So it's just like a little Raspberry Pi 2040 chip in there. And it's got the little motor board there as well. And then 2 N20 motors inside. It's got some rubber bands as well to give it a bit of grip. But yeah, really quick to 3D print. And I designed that. That was my first proper robot.
That's so good. I have to show you the tiniest robot that I've
Oh,
seen.
what?
This is just
That
this
is
the
ridiculous.
Scoobot. Look at how small it is. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. Look
That
at it.
is amazing.
Dun,
So what motors are in that?
dun. It's so small. I could eat this as a snack.
Wow.
It's so small. I forget. Okay, it's by William Wyler. It's so small, and it's got a
That
little
is so small.
happy face on the side of it, and it moves really quickly. You can control it with your phone. It's got a little Bluetooth controller on it and all
What?
kinds of stuff, and it's got a
That's
little
crazy.
piezo, so it makes little noises. It's so cute. Oh, look at these tiny little DC motors.
What?
Look at
I
that.
have some of those.
It's
I will
so
have to
small.
make something similar. Where did I put
I want
those?
to print my own little enclosure for this. It's so cute already, and I just think that, oh man,
Oh, wow.
smallest robot in my collection.
That is amazing. So we have a question from Dale, I think it is. So he says, have you used a Pi Pico at all?
I have not. I have a tab perpetually open on my computer that is like, how do you use the 2 cores of the Pi Pico? And, I do intend to. And actually, when they came out with the RP2040, Eben sent me a little cut tape of about 10 of the little RP2040 chips and also little flash modules that you need to use along with it. And I still want to design my own RP2040 board.
Yes.
I just, this is a perpetual one where they've got all this wonderful documentation about,
Yeah.
and they've got even a sample KiCad project that is a basic sort of minimum viable RP2040 board. And what I want to do is do a bunch of research and figure out what exactly its strengths are. What
Yeah.
is it best for, especially in terms of something like companion bots.
Yeah.
And what could I use it for, and then build my own board around it. Honestly, I should probably just start playing with the Pi Pico, because that's going to be the best way to get familiar with it and sort of really play around with that. I just haven't done it yet.
So what's your go-to language? Do you C or Python?
It depends on what I'm doing, obviously. When I write stuff for his Raspberry Pi brain, it's usually in either JavaScript or Python, mostly Python.
Yeah.
Obviously, I do a lot of Arduino code, which is C, C++.
Yep.
And so Python is more for programming stuff on the Pi. And then JavaScript is really helpful for interfacing microcontrollers and computers. So, for example, with um, Johnny 5,
Yep.
the sort of way of controlling your microcontroller with your computer over USB serial with JavaScript. So it's really a variety. I do love how for the microbit and stuff, the make code environment enables you to
It is
convert on the
good,
fly
isn't it?
between block code and JavaScript and Python now. Like, I think the Python is much newer.
I love these
Yeah,
things.
exactly. Love the microbit.
Yeah.
And now you can sort of toggle between. It doesn't always manage to convert it back and forth. I run into a couple of tight spots there,
Yeah.
but I think that's really cool because JavaScript and Python are really useful for like doing robots, even if you're not using the microbit.
Yeah. I think my go-to language is definitely Python. I started out with C, and obviously that is the fastest if you want to get the speed down. In fact, one of the robots, I wonder if I've got it on there. It has the ESP32 camera.
Oh, I keep meaning to bust
Yeah.
that out. I think I've got one of those from ages ago.
So I got one of these. I kind of cheated, really, just hardwired. So it's just got power going to it, and then you just connect to that to see what it can see. And it's got the Tasmoto firmware on there. So I thought, well, okay, I'll put MicroPython on there. I will load. There was a version of MicroPython that you can use the camera, and you can grab a frame every, say, 5 seconds. What? Whereas obviously in C, which they've written this in, and it's got the 2 cores, it's like streaming live. So
Nice.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very different.
Yes, it depends what you want to use it for, I guess, really. But I do love
Yeah,
these
for sure.
Picos. I've been converting all my robots over to use the Pico. So, in fact, that's what I did with OpenCat. I've got a Pico on OpenCat.
Yeah. There's some good utilities from, for example, Maker Uno, who are based in Malaysia. They have a really cool set of, the company is Citron, but they make a bunch of like storage options, like hard drives and SSDs specifically for Raspberry Pis,
Oh, cool.
and a bunch of like this. The Maker Uno is an Arduino Uno that has a built-in LED on every I/O pin, so it's very easy to prototype stuff. They've got a built-in buzzer and stuff. It's like an Uno on steroids. And they've also created this sort of like breakout board for the Pico that enables you to sort of test it out. I should just put that on my desk and not move it from my desk. And that's why my desk is a nightmare, actually, because I do stuff like that.
It's the same. I had to tidy up for the show, but usually it's just terrible. I did like this. This is from
I
the.
only have one camera angle right now.
So this is by various different camera angles you can see there. So this is the main camera. We have overhead camera there. And I've actually got a GoPro that's just not doing anything at the moment. And then there's this more portable one I can show around the room. So I can show you my sort of maker space. I've got lots of tools and things up there. And I've got all these posters as well. Printed them out so I can get the pinouts very quickly. Just grab it off the wall and see. Yeah. So
that's a good move.
That's what I've got going on there. And this is a purpose-built robot lab as well. It's in a shed at the bottom of my garden.
Cool.
So, it's awesome. Work from home as well.
I'm tucked into a corner of our attic, so since the whole lockdown situation, I actually moved house. I used to have all our stuff at our office, and then I've sort of crammed myself into a corner of our attic up here, but I have my lights and stuff. But to have a purpose-built robot room is very nice.
I do have to watch out for fire though, because it's a wooden structure, so I've got a smoke alarm just in case. There's a lot of stuff running all the time in here. So,
I'm one of those. I'm in one of those old San Francisco, wooden-built houses. Oh, look at that!
This is one of the cute robots I built. So
that is very cute.
It has a
aptly
little
named.
Yep.
DHT11 or whatever.
Yep, that's the one. And he has Weatherbot. And it's kind of a retro kind of style to it. He has an ESP on the back.
I've been really, it's not a robot, but I've been really into this display by, oh my gosh, I'm so bad with names today. Darian Johnson? I'm so bad at names. But it's got things like the weather and the AQI and stuff. This is one of the very few things that actually is staying on my desk because it's got the air quality display.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Sweet.
But this is called the Newt. It's on Crowds to Play right now. They just sent it. Sharp memory display. It's nice because it doesn't need a backlight really.
So this is one of them where I thought, what can I do with a single servo? So to take his head off there, you can see the servo displays the temperature on his stomach.
Yeah,
So quite sweet.
that's very cute. Oh, solid robot.
Solid, cute little robot. Cool, cool. So let's see
Yeah.
if there's any other questions. Yes, so Dan was saying, where'd you get the inspiration for your projects?
Everywhere. The problem is I have too many interests. Oh my goodness. So, obviously I love robots. I love wearable tech. I love wearable robots. I love biohacking. I love wearable biohacking. These are two objects that other people have created, but I'm actually making forays into the world of programming to mess around with them. So this is Kitty Young's Ble Brooch. And oh, we suddenly have more light. That's great. I don't even know how that happened. But so this is inspired by wanting to do more meditation. So this is like a little counter I wrote for Kitty's badge that sort of helps you do this pattern of breathing called 4-7-8 breathing that helps you relax. Same with this. Actually, Roko is kind of a therapy robot. I am not allowed to have pets at my house, and I probably shouldn't anyway because my life is too chaotic. But I'm just gonna unplug those real quick. There we go. Roko is inspired by my desire to have a pet. And so she's going to have this, heating element on the bottom made by Lumia Tech, a very cool company. She's going to have this little cyborg eye, and she's going to have a purring module. Let me see if I can share my screen, because I think it'd be helpful for this question, actually, to look through some of my ones, and I can just tell you. This is the Scoobot. But okay, so
Awesome.
Roko, I just told you about. Archimedes, we already talked about. Fen, kind of inspired by wanting to play around with cameras and AI with cameras. Cool Bloom, that's the one that I just showed you. These are all on Hackster. You can just find me. The companion core. Actually, I already told you about lots of this stuff. Okay, let's talk about the ESP8261. This one was inspired largely by the fact that I wanted to program ESP8266s, but every time I do it, every like 2 or 3 years, I would want to do it, and then I'd have to start over from scratch. And that's why I wasn't using it, because it was such a pain in the butt. And so I finally decided to just make something that would this satisfied both my desire to learn how to make PCBs as an artistic endeavor as well as a technological one, and also to be able to use ESP8266 boards, because I never do, because it's a huge pain. And so part of it is inspired by wanting to make tools that I can use that are beautiful. This is a ruler that I made, inspired by one by Evil Mad Scientist Labs, but it's got these embedded copper designs that are actually from old books. This is from a series called Quarl's Emblems, and this thing with the bird and the lightning and stuff. I just think it's beautiful. So beauty is one of my large inspirations. I guess I have a desire to commune with animals because I keep making them. What else? Biohacking is definitely one. Obviously sustainability. So there's one that I'm going to be building, a version of a Joule Thief, which is a circuit that you can use to basically steal energy from what seems to be a dead AA or AAA battery and use it to run an LED for a long time. And I want to make a board with this to sort of explore more sustainable options. I want to get solar power and stuff. I'm also using it as a platform to eventually collaborate with Jiva Materials, who create these recyclable and biodegradable PCB substrates so that you can make circuit boards that are less harmful. And I'm constantly trying to push to make projects that are more positive and less harmful, because it's something that we don't really think about that much. Or we think that it's such a huge unsolvable problem that none of us can do anything about it. And so that's actually part of the inspiration for my new Hackster 2022 badge as well. So this one that I showed you earlier, here's a close-up. Part of the deal with this is on the back it has a link to this page, and on this project page I have a bunch of links for how to do sustainable stuff with electronics. And I'm going to be updating this throughout the year. but things like how to dispose of puffy lipo batteries without screwing up the earth. A blog post by Christina Sear of the Circle Phone who I interviewed last year. Can a smartphone be sustainably manufactured? She has all these tips on like this research that she's done on how to make things more recyclable, more sustainable to produce in the beginning, and what materials to make stuff out of, what processes to use, things like can we make enclosures out of recycled cardboard by 3D printing our own molds, and that way you use up all those cardboard boxes you get in the mail, and you also get to create robots out of sustainable materials and things like that. And what's this other one? Oh yeah, just different ways for creating sustainable PCBs. I'm going to be interviewing Ben Krasnow of Applied Science on Tuesday, and he has a new process that he's been playing with for creating circuit boards out of ceramic, which I think has a lot of possibility for making sustainable circuit boards. So that's one another. Oh, I'm in that.
Not sure what happened there.
That's a huge motivator for me, is like just exploring these different techniques that we can use to make sustainable technology. I want to get into solar power as well. Oh, yes.
That was one of my first robots. I built a greenhouse robot. Where I'm sat now, we used to have a greenhouse. And I just wanted to have a remote module somewhere that could detect what temperature it was the humidity of the plant, to see if it needed watering, all that kind of stuff. And I used a Raspberry Pi, I think it was a Zero, an Arduino, and I've quickly found that they use a lot of power. So I then went back to just an Arduino, but then used that ESP01 chip, and I learned how to program them and the pain that it is to do the reset and the boot thing. So
did you have to breadboard out your own circuit?
Yes,
or did you?
I did. Yeah. So I learned how to do that. And then
you end up with these problems in programming it, because it's kind of a touchy process, and if you if one of the little connections is loose, it's such a pain. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't quite master it. I designed it in some software called OmniGraffle, and it's kind of like vector-based thing. I designed it there. I then flipped it over in Photoshop and then printed that out on a laser printer. And then ironed that onto a little copper board.
Oh, cool.
I even bought an iron just to do that, so it didn't ruin out actual iron. And
I've never done that photo transfer method, but it seems really cool.
It's a bit hit and miss. I hadn't mastered it, so I've got lots of prints of them that are not quite there. So, but yeah, it's a really good process.
What did you use to do the etching?
So I've got some. Is it ferric fluoride? Whatever it's called, the acid that you use.
Like that. Ferrous chloride or something?
Yeah, that's the one. And that's not a nice chemical. If that gets in, it's not very good for the environment. So, yeah.
Likewise, I was looking for I actually downloaded a long time ago on Etsy. I found a guide to etching metal, including copper, with just like salt water, and I think it's electrochemical etching instead of just like chemical etching, and that's another way that you can do it. I haven't actually taken the leap to try it yet, but it's some similar concern.
So I'm not sure what's going on with my scene there. It seems to be getting confused.
Technical difficulty is the name of the game.
What is going on there? So I'll just do that. There we go. So yes, we've got another question there from Rob, and Robert, he says, fairly new. Kevin has provided with some guidance and resources through his channel. My question is, if you had to pick 3 languages, which would they be and why? I guess it's probably to do with whatever the project is. That probably defines the language.
Y'all keep saying languages, and like I'm a huge fan of human languages as well, so I would say Russian, Mandarin, and Arabic, because they're all very beautiful and very different. But
like
they're
it.
computers. Those are basically my main 3 that I mentioned earlier. Is like C sharp or C/C++ for Arduino, Python and JavaScript. I think those are the most useful ones for doing electronics right now.
I think once you've learned one language, it's kind of transferable, isn't it? Because it's all about logic, really, isn't it, and structure. They've all got their own quirks.
But that's where I get tripped up, because if you get the syntax wrong when you're trying to speak one language when you're doing a thing in another one, it's like, oh, this one requires semicolons. Oh, that one, indents are semantic. Oh no.
Yeah. Another question about languages. So, have you used CircuitPython or MicroPython?
Yes. I love them. I should have mentioned that earlier. I actually think that my life would be a lot better if I stuck with MicroPython or CircuitPython over Arduino because it. I've been doing this, programming Arduinos since like 2009, and it. You find an old project, and if you want to change something about it or find the code or something, you have to dig through. You may never find that code again. You just may never find it.
Yeah.
And if you do, it might be like a version 3 versions behind. With MicroPython and CircuitPython, it's stored on the board. You can just plug the thing in, open it up like a flash drive, and there it is. And then you can share it. You can change one line from anyone's computer without having to like download your code from GitHub or whatever and pray that it was the most recent version. It's just there on the board and it's accessible. And I think that is amazing. And you don't have to upload it or anything. You just save it. And then the boards often have a little LED that will give you like a color code to tell you what the error is if there is one. It's just so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it's so much easier, isn't it? Than, I mean, when I grew up,
it really is.
We programmed on like that thing there, the BBC computer. They were huge things, and it was running BASIC, and it would just give you these really weird error messages like error. Was it our tape loading error, or it would just say error. Oh, great! Thanks, thanks for telling me what the error is. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have you seen BBC Microbot on Twitter? You can
I've said code to that.
And it'll simulate it. And now they've added a visualizer, so they'll actually send you a little GIF of like a little virtual computer running, and it's on the screen.
In 3D. I have seen that. I had to play with that.
Yeah,
it's running on a Raspberry Pi cluster, I believe. So I've got my own little Raspberry Pi cluster running just there as well. That's a little Mac Mini,
nice.
And then there's a little Raspberry Pi. And there's part. In fact, if you go to clustered-pi.com, it's running there. So that's another side project. Cool. So we have another question. So Jack is asking, do you ever take them out in public? Now, I know you
absolutely.
have. You've taken them to make a fair.
There's a bunch of fun videos with me and Jay. You know, to be honest, I usually only wear them to hardware things, but I absolutely tend to bring a robot with me, like anytime I go to a hardware thing. Most recently, I went to a hangout in some friend's garage. It was like a long-awaited reunion of hackers in San Francisco. A bunch of people I haven't seen in a long time, and I brought Rocco along, and like, that was really useful to see actually how people interact with this furry robot, because I'm very like, I want to pet it and keep it nice, because this is a very, I've had this fur for a long time. I'm not going to probably buy another real animal fur, and so it's kind of like very precious to me, and people were just like kind of like going ham on it. So now I know that I shouldn't I should give people notes if they're going to if I'm gonna hand the robot to them. And I've worn these out in public and stuff.
So I've got another question there.
I've bicycled around with Fenrir on my shoulder actually, which is less challenging than you might assume.
Did you get some strange looks from people on that?
Mostly excitement.
So Dale is asking, have you subscribed to James Bruton's channel? He does Open Dog, and he has like 1 million subscribers.
We do follow each other on Twitter, and we converse on there sometimes. I have a confession to make, which is that I don't actually watch a lot of Maker YouTube. I make Maker YouTube, but usually when I'm watching stuff, I guess it tends to be different genres. And I've been watching a lot of repair channels recently because I want to get into repairing electronics. But funnily enough, I guess Twitter is usually the way that I consume that kind of stuff. I'll like watch people's videos when they're embedded in tweets about their projects, and that's how I like to like stay in the conversation.
So I've got a bit of a secret announcement to make. I'm interviewing James Bruton very shortly. So if you've got any questions for James, throw them in the chat, and I'll ask him when I interview him. We'll have to do it as a recorded one because he's a very busy guy.
Oh yeah,
I'm the same as you, Alex. I don't actually watch a lot of other maker videos. A bit like yourself, if I see something on Twitter or on Instagram, I'll be like, "Ooh, what's that?" and I'll take a look. But I don't spend a lot of time. I try and spend more time making stuff and coding stuff and documenting stuff rather than watching other people's stuff.
I'm still trying to wrap up my robot holiday cards, which I intentionally designed as a very generic sort of like not centered around any particular
Yeah.
holiday. It's just kind of a winter thing. And it
Cool.
looks hand drawn, but it's drawn by me by hand on my iPad. And now this was drawn by my AxiDraw robot.
Sweet.
So I've got, some failed ones here and stuff. So you can see they're all like these scribbles and stuff. And that's one of the things that I've got so many things that I'm actively trying to work on myself, that like consuming things in little nibbles like Instagram and Twitter and stuff is more realistic for me than like having a video on and paying attention for like an hour.
Yes,
I can't.
exactly.
Oh, that's very hard for me.
Yeah. And I've been trying to grow the channel because I love doing this. This is my hobby. And so I've decided to not do any other hobbies and just focus on robots. I mean, it's a big enough area anyway, because there's the coding, there's the mechanical design side and fusion, and then, the electronic side as well. So there's plenty for me to sort of switch between there. But I do try and have something new out every week, if not twice a week. That's quite a challenge to do with a day job as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. See if there's any other questions. So, yeah, Jack's got another one. You said your robots have offline facial recognition. So how do they react to someone?
Yes.
Yeah,
So
you can do that, Jack.
Archimedes, has done that. In the past, he actually had the first version had like a camera in one eye, and the other one was a buzzer or speaker. And so that was done with Google AIY. He was based on the Google AIY Vision Kit, which is a kit that includes like a camera and some demos and stuff. And it was written in Python, so you could just load that onto the Raspberry Pi, hook up all the the button and the speaker and the camera that it came with, and it would do its thing. So mostly what I did with Archimedes is less programming and more just building the whole carapace. But then, this later version is much more, and of course I wrote the animations and stuff, but later on, a later version was going to be more powerful, but I haven't like gotten deep into the programming on that yet. There's one other thing I'd like to mention, which is Mojit Pahoyte. It does these amazing, I probably said that wrong, but these amazing, speaking of solar punk, he makes these beautiful freeform electronic circuits that are gorgeous pieces of art. So he makes them with brass rods and stuff and all these interesting things. And speaking of solar punk technology, he makes these ones called Pummers, which are a little solar device that eats sunlight, and then it'll blink a little LED like every once in a while, as long as it has light to eat. And I think they're just a beautiful little device, and I wanted to make sure that I mention it because they're so gorgeous. And it's based on this whole system called Beam Robotics. Oh, I'm sharing my screen, but you can't see it right now.
Let me just I need to just press that button there. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. What?
It's very beautiful, and I advise you to check his stuff out. This is actually one of his simpler builds physically, but he's got some that are incredibly gorgeous, and I just want you to check those out as well. If you haven't seen them before, like look at this one. It's got this little panel that's inspired by the tile tessellations in mosques. It's just gorgeous. Anyway, Mojit, beautiful stuff from an amazing artist.
Sweet. So one of the other, I'm like you. I'll see something and it'll sort of inspire me to create something similar. Let me try and get that right again. Oh, just pain this thing. Right, if I put you on the right there we go. Yes, if I just share my screen for a second, I've got the right screen up. This is Theo Jensen created this leg walking thing.
I love those.
Yeah, so I created this one in Fusion 360. I've not actually printed it out yet, so I do need to have a play with that. But I did a video on that. Yeah. So that's a really cool, weird walking thing. And he has these strand beasts, doesn't he? What they're huge, and they sort of walk across the.
They walk down the beaches.
Yeah.
And they're made of like recycled PVC pipes and
that's
water
it. Yeah,
balls and
completely
things.
like wind powered.
Yeah.
Sorry. I love those. So there's another question that's just come through there. Have you looked at the new Arduino Potentia H7? Be awesome for AI-based robots.
I have not actually sat down with it much yet. That's another one where often I'm trying to build things like specific things And often I don't actually need anything much more powerful than what I already have. So, for example, the Arduino Nano 33 BLE Sense is something I'm using for a lot of voice interactions.
Yeah.
And, there isn't actually a lot that I can't do with the ones that I already have. I know the Portenta H7 is very powerful and could do a lot of extra stuff, but many of the things that I'm trying to build for use in everyday life can actually be done quite simply. So, for example, the things that I'm doing with the cardio. Where did you go? Oh no. Well, anyway, that really cool wearable watch module that I showed you before. Curses. It has a vibration motor and a little screen and a number of little sensors. And what it has extra special is a little EEG, or not EEG, electrocardiogram, ECG, or EKG heart monitor. And let's see, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, and so I'm playing a lot with this platform because it fulfills a lot of my desires for what to do with wearables. And so I'm kind of obsessed with this one right now. It's just such a full-featured platform and very beautiful, and has all this stuff that I want right now for what I'm trying to do. And it feels like there's sometimes not enough hours in the day to also sit down with a new platform and figure out what it's good for and how I can use it to improve upon the projects that I'm trying to build. So, for example, the Pi Pico, like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
I have one. I have tabs open that tell me about why the 2 cores are awesome and why PIO is awesome.
Yeah.
But I haven't found the time to just sit down and look at those yet. And it's the same with the Arduino Portenta H7. I've got one in the office here, but I just need to figure out what it's good for. And that, unfortunately, I haven't found the time for yet.
Yeah. It's the age-old problem, isn't it? Just trying to find time to branch off to do something different. So I find that it's
especially when...
So
I'm sure you understand the extra time that goes into documenting projects and editing video. Editing video, especially if you can avoid doing that with your life, you'll have so much extra time.
This is true. This is how I got into live streaming, because I wanted to do video content, and I thought I don't want to spend a lot of time editing, though they do tend to do better those videos. But yeah, you don't have to edit too much. People are a bit more forgiving with a live stream. So
it's how it goes. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's it. And you get that engagement as well with the audience when you've got a live stream. So we've got 20 odd people on here, and cool. So I think we've got one more last question there from Dale. He said, where did you get the ECG module from? So is that a kit, the watch?
It is built into this cardio, and I think that's part of why it's so unusual and so special. I wish I could find... Oh, here, I'm going to take off Fen, and I'm going to bend down and grab it off the floor where it fell. The one that's actually working. Okay. That's part of why this thing is so special, I think. It was made actually as the official badge for Chaos Communication Camp 2019. Are you going to wake up? Maybe you're out of battery. But it's really hard to find a good module for that. There are the pulsesensor.com Arduino compatible pulse modules, but this is the first one that I've found that really just works very well out of the box. And so let me show you what it does. Go down to the menu, go down to the ECG, and it takes a second to sort of kick in, but once it does, it's very solid. Oh, I think it needs like more contacts and stuff. But this stuff is really hard to do from scratch. But this actually manages it. Let me see if we can get this running. It might be a little rough because I'm not actually wearing it on my wrist. I'm like holding it in my hand. It should ideally, when I do this and it's on my wrist, it does eventually
you can see the pulses.
Oh, it just started doing it a second ago. Of course, once I stopped holding it up. But yeah, it shows you your pulse in real time, which is something that I haven't been able to find otherwise. Okay, so the problem is that this was made for a specific event, and they got a bunch of sponsors to throw in stuff, and now it's really hard to find chips, and it would be really expensive to build more of them because they ran out of the sponsored components, obviously, and it's a really incredible set of things that they've pulled together on there. So if you can get your hands on one, It's amazing. It's Cardio, spelled like Cardio, only it's a 1 and a 0 instead of the I and the O. And
Sweet.
yeah, it's the badge from CC Camp 2019, and it's just an amazing UCG platform. I'll show you. I've got the
Yep.
page up here, actually. Oop. There we go. Oh, yeah, we might have to switch over. There we go. Cardio module. It's so good. And they've got this beautiful, robust documentation platform for it as well.
Yeah. I've got a question there from David. I've only got a couple more questions. I'm not sure how you're doing on time.
Oh,
I'll try and wrap up in a couple of minutes.
that's fine.
Is that
No
okay?
worries.
So yeah, he's asking, have you ever made any humanoid type
Ooh.
robots?
You know, the Auto is a little bit humanoid. And I've made one of
Isn't
those,
it?
and you've made one of those.
Yeah.
I've never really had a desire to make a humanoid robot because, well, I guess I have. When I saw the InMove robot, INMOOV, it's very cool looking and very futuristic and stuff. I like the idea, but also I think that my skills are. Oh, you know what? Actually, that's a lie. I totally want to. I haven't made one, but there's one that I want to make that's inspired by Neuromancer, the sci-fi book. Classic
Favorite
book by William Gibson.
Yes.
And there's a, they call it a terminal. It's like a computer terminal to an AI, and it's shaped like a human head, but it's made out of beautiful jewels and pearls and things, and it is a fond desire of mine to actually build this thing. That's another project that I might build if I had that blue sky of like unlimited money and time and stuff.
Yep. I've been Googling
That-
Cyberdecks the past couple of weeks. I was like, ooh, got to build one of those.
Mm.
So
Trap.
interestingly, people are just talking then about humanoid robots. I have, if I can get my body out of the way there, so you can see there's a torso just there. If I flip to, is it that camera? You can just see up there. We have,
I see.
where is it? At the top there with the glasses on, just here. That's his head. And he's got an arm there. There's actually another arm just on there as well. These things take ages to print out. And there are loads of challenges with it as well. Like mechanically speaking, it's not a perfect design. There's lots of tolerance issues, and you've got to be a good maker. And the guy who designed that, Gale, he's a sculptor. So this was kind of a side project of his to make something. That's InMove, yes. Yeah, it's a brilliant project to make. I always get it out when I'm on sort of conference calls and just sit the head next to me because it's got a camera in its eyeball and you can make it move and everything. But yeah, it's quite an intensive build. And I'd started printing that when I first got a 3D printer, and I was like, I'm out of depth here. I can make the body, but I can't program it. And I'd learnt Python to try and program it, but it's I think it's
a lot of servos.
You need and they are not cheap. So I think I've got all the servos I need now, but it's hundreds of pounds. Like some of them are like massive things. Hobby King, they're like £40 for $50 each, something like that. And you need like loads of them for the arms and the shoulders. But yeah, and you need a little power. You need a great big lead acid battery as well to power it. And the Robot Maker software, what's it called? Robot Lab, my Robot Lab. It's written in Java and it's quirky, so that requires like a lot of time. And I was like, I'm not sure I can commit the time to finishing this thing off. So it's in the box of shame at the moment. I'm learning other things. Alex says my daughter Alex says each one of these boxes here, they're all a box of shame. There's various projects that didn't quite make it. So
So I noticed one thing in your background, which is you have a poster of Metropolis.
Yes.
And I have to show you on this. Basically, one of the things that's very near and dear to my heart, obviously, is like building things in a sustainable way and in a way that makes sense for our society. And so on this companion core, at the bottom here, it has a phrase in German, which is Mittle, I'm going to say this wrong, Mittle zwischen Hirn und Händen muss das Herz sein. Something like that. And it's from Metropolis, and what it means is the mediator between the head and the hands must be the heart. And that is absolutely sort of the core of what I believe when we're making stuff. And that's sort of, it works really well with this PCB, obviously, because it's got the little heart on it. And it's very essential to what I do. No matter what I'm making, ideally, it's got this aspect of being thoughtful about how we use technology and what we're developing and who's going to use it and what for.
Yeah. I like that with Apple and Steve Jobs, he had that the crossroads between liberal arts and technology, and that's where he said Apple stood. I'm not sure if they're still there now, but that's where he wanted them to be.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Google's don't be evil, and then they end
Yeah.
up, hiring a bunch of AI ethicists and then firing them as soon as they actually do something.
Yeah.
That's
it.
It's pretty real.
Was it Taylor Swift?
So who knows? Maybe I'll become
Yeah.
Apple or Google someday, and I'll, and people will be like, "What happened to the
What
mediator
happened to
between
you?"
the head and the hands?" Must be the heart. And I'll be like, I'll just ignore them.
Yeah, so I have quite a few movie posters in the background there, just out of interest. So you can see we've got Forbidden Planet there. We have Westworld, Metropolis. We've got 2001 with HAL. We've got The Day the Earth Stood Still with Gort. And we have Short Circuit there with Johnny Five. We've got some old stuff as well. There's a Game Boy there and a old Mac Classic, well, Mac SE. Bit of retro stuff.
That Nexter made with me on a rhino.
Oh yes.
It's like a cyborg rhino here.
Sweet.
This was for some celebration or other. I actually shouldn't grab it there because it's been on the road, but it's got it's got a microbit on it controlling these lights. I wonder if it has any battery left. Huh? It does! Oh, we got some light.
Wow. Is it dynamo powered? You could have a dynamo
Is it
connected to dynamo.
Oh, that would be really cool, wouldn't it?
Self-powered.
Alas, no. It's just got a huge lipo strap to it.
Awesome. Sweet.
I usually have these robot guys perched on that shelf, but obviously I wanted to actually share those.
Cool. So I'll just see if there's any more questions, and then I'll let you get back to what you're up to. So Jack's asking, with so many projects going on, how do you keep track of it all? Are you a big list keeper?
Well, okay, so yes, but the problem is that I am a big list keeper, which means that I have a lot of lists all over the place, all the time, and they're very repetitive, and they don't match up. So I currently have lists in Trello, Asana, various bits of paper, more pieces of paper, Google Docs, Evernote, all these other systems, Google Keep,
Yep.
iOS Notes, Procreate. I sketch stuff out in Procreate. It's horrible. Don't do this to yourself. But actually, it's funny. On a real note, I recently got diagnosed with ADHD and have been taking medication for the first time for like the last 3 months. And it is making it so that I feel like I have decades of technical debt that I've accrued. And I'm finally sort of going back and refining all of those so that things are like, I'm, for example, taking all the videos I've done in the last year and giving them a coherent naming strategy and, backing them up in a way that makes sense where I can find the files in the future. And it's been really life-changing. So I hope to change that. I don't want to lose, the spontaneity.
Yeah.
And, obviously if something's on a lot of different lists, then that means that I'm very excited about it and I should pursue that. And also it's fun to come across an old list once in a while and find a project that I've forgotten about.
Yeah.
But I'm not sad about the way I am. I love the way that my brain works, and I think it's good to accept yourself the way that you are.
Absolutely.
But it's also useful sometimes to reach for the tools that we have.
Yes. And just for info, I'm also a list keeper. I've got a Trello list there with all my project ideas on.
Good labeling.
So yes, back to there. Yes, so I do keep them, and it's more just if I'm in the shower and I think, I need to do a video on that. So for example, somebody told me the other week, you can connect to a Raspberry Pi from a different computer and run code on it in Visual Studio. And I was like, ooh, that sounds really cool. I need to do a video on that. So that's going to be on my list of things to do. Look at that. Yes.
Notebooks everywhere.
Notebooks. I have my Orange Book of Awesomeness as well.
my little third hand here has a bunch of. It's like also a
googly
note
eyes.
holder.
Yes.
Oh yeah, very important. Anyway.
Yes. So I've got a similar one. I've got my. I don't know if you can see any of my drawings on there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it might make more sense maybe to use a binder recently. So this is like my notes for the Hackster 2022 badge. But then I can't like easily write on the other side. It's kind of a pain, so I don't think that that's gonna stick around. We'll see.
Awesome. And that's it. I'm a big fan of pen and paper. I have an iPad with the fancy pen and all that, but sometimes you can't just beat a
Sometimes you
pencil
just gotta do pen
paper.
and paper. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool, cool. So I think, other than Adam mentioned about Neuromancer, you've got to read that, Adam. It's where cyberspace came from, for goodness sake. William Gibson is just amazing. In fact, when I was hearing about the metaverse and where Facebook is going with the metaverse, William Gibson invented this years ago. So the idea of having like a second life or whatever, yeah, he's written about that in depth. So it's well worth a
Yeah,
read.
and
It's
there's
really good.
tons of other awesome sci-fi writers, and we're getting a whole new crop now. People like Martha Wells, who's doing a really interesting series called the Murderbot Diaries. It's good. It's fun and great and really thought-provoking. And Annalee Newitz is doing some amazing stuff about robotics. If you're interested in like, oh my gosh, she has this book Autonomous that is incredible. If you're into books about robots, absolutely check that out. Yeah, oh, all kinds of good stuff. But William Gibson absolutely absolutely was like a groundbreaking
Yeah,
voice in that. Even, people argue that Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was the first sci-fi novel with
absolutely.
like, and
Yeah,
Frankenstein
yeah,
is kind of a robot, uh, bringing up a lot of these questions about like what is consciousness and what is autonomy and what is, all this, and how much autonomy do we give these things, and things like that. It's just like
yeah.
incredible. But yeah, Gibson, a huge one. He has an interesting new series called The Peripheral. The first one is The Peripheral, the second is Agency. Really interesting modern day stuff ish.
Yeah. And
Uh,
obviously he did a lot of these steampunk stuff as well, didn't he? Kicked off that genre. I think he did a collaboration. I don't know if he invented it, but he certainly jumped on that and
yeah,
wrote
it's hard
a
to say who
book.
like kicks off the genre, but like he's
Yeah,
dabbled in so many different cool things.
yeah, he's an excellent
China
writer.
Miéville is really amazing if you're interested in steampunk. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. He wrote one called Perdido Street Station, which just has an amazing steampunk vibe.
yeah. And in fact, one of the
Also,
places
insect people.
we go on holiday every year in Whitby, and Whitby is where Dracula was written. So the whole story of
Ooh!
Dracula, Bram Stoker wrote it. You can actually view the room that he wrote it from, and you can see the steps that the big hound sort of bounds up.
Woo!
And there was a real ship, the Demeter, that crashed on the shore as well. So it's based on a bit of local history. Anyway,
Really
he
cool.
he
I
had
should
a
check that out.
competition, didn't he, with Mary Shelley about who could write the best horror film. He came up with Dracula, she came up with Frankenstein. So they had a bit of a competition there. So where was I
It's one
going
of
with
those
this?
competitions
So
where everyone
yes,
wins, right?
Whitby, they have a steampunk festival every year. So there's people walking around with like massive outfits on and Victorian with the goggles, and it's really good.
Oh.
It's awesome.
Oh, I should put up a tutorial about that first one that I built with the Delta robots, because that was absolutely made of like wood and brass fittings and like this old trunk, this huge
Yeah,
old trunk I had, and that's also incidentally, one of those projects where I pull it out, it sits in the garage, and like I want to publish it, but the Arduino code on there, you know, I don't
yeah,
know what version it's running. I don't know what computer that was on. So MicroPython for the future. But yeah,
yeah.
steampunk, good stuff.
We've got a
Definitely had a
question, the
phase.
final question from Adam.
Okay.
So he said, "How did you become the face of Hackster?"
Oh, so
Hard work.
I was sort of there when Hackster was being created.
Yeah,
Is the answer to that. So, the founders, Ben and Adam, I was technically the first employee, the person that they hired to help put the community together, and so, and I had this like, it's sort of blue and blonde right now, but I've had blue hair since before the company started, and uh, it just sort of happened that I was basically hired to help build the community out, start putting some projects up, invite people to the community, uh, get hardware platforms on the community, and things like that. So I was sort of doing all the person stuff that wasn't like business to business, which Adam and Ben, the founders, were doing at the time. And so when we started wanting to do videos, it was me. And also like I was sort of the resident tutorial maker, publisher, doing all that stuff at the start. So
yeah,
I sort of like helped grow it into what it is now. I won't take full credit, obviously. Like, it's an amazing team. We've had so many cool people come through here, and I've met such amazing humans through this company. But that's sort of how it happened. It's been very organic.
Yeah. And that's it. It's just doing the same thing repeatedly as well, isn't it? By just keep doing those tutorials and going to the shows and showing them and again and again and
Yeah,
again.
like I've
Yeah.
been the one who went to like maker fairs and documented stuff and
Yeah.
super cons and things like that and DEF CON, and
Yeah.
I would be the one who shows up with like my weird hair and my weird robots and like the Haxter shirt on and be like taking like, can you tell me about your project and whatever. And it's absolutely exactly where I want to be in life. It
Yeah.
feels like the perfect place for me. So
Perfect.
it's really worked out well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for your time today. Really, really appreciate you coming on the stream. And I'm sure we'll check in again in the future. I'll be certainly keep an eye on your projects on Twitter and so on. So yes, I think I've even put a few of my projects on Hackster. I'll have to throw a few more of them up there as well. Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
I wasn't gonna do the plug, but that would be amazing. I would love to.
Hackster IO is awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool.
Ben says bye. She says bye. They don't actually
Awesome.
say it right now because they're not hooked up, but Rocco says maybe I'll see you sometime in the future.
Awesome.
All right, good then.
See you later. Thanks everybody for joining this stream, and we'll see you next week. So yes, thanks for watching. I have got a really interesting guest as well coming very soon, James Bruton. We just need to do that as an offline video. So if you want to send me any questions, you can also go to smarsfan.com, click on that little chat bubble and just send me a question there, and I shall ask him that on the recorded video. So yes, thanks everybody for watching. I shall see you next time. Bye for now.